Okay, this is my presentation on Niccolò Machiavelli. As you can see, he was born in 1469. He was born in Italy. He was the son of an attorney. And just to give a little bit of background history, at the time, Italy was split up into different city-states. It was a pretty crazy time they lived in. There were a lot of power struggles, not only from within Italy, but also there was a threat of a foreign invasion. It was pretty much a constant problem. Machiavelli himself was born and lived in the Republic of Florence. Like I said, he was the son of an attorney. Now, according to Machiavelli himself, he says that he was born poor and kind of worked his way up. My research suggests otherwise. I would think even back then an attorney would be a pretty decent job. And also it seems that historians seem to believe that he was the descendant of aristocracy. So maybe he wasn't as poor as he thought he was. We'll get into that later. Now, the Republic of Florence during Machiavelli's time was ruled by the House of Medici. The House of Medici were a powerful banking family. Now, Florence was officially a republic, but it was really ruled by a few small but powerful families. It was more or less an oligarchy. They controlled all the offices, and the most powerful of which was the House of Medici. They're a pretty interesting group. They actually helped fund Michelangelo, and were very prominent in the Renaissance era. They liked the arts, so they you know, not entirely bad people, but they were kicked out in 1494 and replaced by a religious zealot named Savonarola. Hope I pronounced that right. Savonarola was like I say, a very religious guy. He wanted to turn Florence into like an ultra religious state, and he began doing things like he attacked Pisa, which he failed. The economy, went to heck, and he was ousted and executed in 1498 with the help of France and King Louis VIII. Here's a little bit of a historical overview. You can see that the Medici family had ruled Florence from 1434 to 1494. Savonarola comes into power in 1494 to 1498. French forces helped reestablish the republic. Now, Machiavelli himself, he had been, by now he's in his late 20s. He's about 29 years old. This is when he's elected to the government as second chancery. The second chancery is basically a council of 10, I believe. They go on diplomatic missions. His job is as a diplomat. He goes on quite a few important diplomatic missions. He goes to the court of King Louis VIII. He visits Spain, Germany. He visits the papacy in Rome. So he does quite a bit. And it's during this time that he's very impressed by some of the exploits of Cesare Borgia. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that completely right, but Cesare Borgia was the son of Pope Alexander the Sixth, I believe, and he basically was trying to control large areas of Italy, and the brutal fashion in which he did this was something that had impressed upon Machiavelli quite significantly. He witnessed this and apparently saw its effectiveness, or in some cases maybe lack of effectiveness. And this would come to influence his most famous work, The Prince. During this time, he's also made more or less like the Secretary of Defense. His belief is that foreign mercenaries are bad, or I guess during this time it's not uncommon for the city-states, if they want to go to war or have a military conflict, they'll just hire foreign mercenaries. The problem with that is the mercenaries aren't going to be, they're going to loyal to the nation they're fighting for. They have no national sense of pride. So if they go into a fight that maybe has overwhelming odds, or they just don't feel good about it, they're very liable to run away. So Machiavelli decides to set up a sort of homegrown army out of people just from Florence. He does so, and with this army he is able to successfully defeat Pisa, something his predecessor was unable to do. So he's the leader of the military. He's also in charge of the city's defense, of the Florentine defense. And let's see, like I say, in 1509, I believe it was, when he defeated Pisa. But by 1512, the Medicis are able to reclaim power with the help of the Spanish army. They come back into power, and they dissolve the Republic. Machiavelli is thrown out of office, he loses command, and he is tortured by the Medici family. They label him a conspirator. He's tortured and questioned by them for days, apparently. He never admits his involvement in any conspiracy, and is finally released after torture, but he is exiled from his home of Florence. He goes to live in an estate in the countryside where he becomes very distraught and miserable with his new life. As I said, Machiavelli was a guy who claimed to come from low means. I don't think that's quite true, for reasons I had spoken before. During his upbringing, he was very well educated. He learned Latin, learned how to write. So my guess is he wasn't nearly as poor as he probably thought he was. But I think with this guy, he had reached a certain level of power and prestige that comes with anybody that's in political office. He was a man that, during his time, more or less traveled the world, or a small part of the world. But yeah, so he probably had money during those times, had a lot of well-connected friends, and like I said, the power, the prestige, these are all things that kind of skewed his perspective. And so he actually thought he was poor, when in actuality I highly doubt he ever lived the life of a peasant, even during his exile. Politics was his entire life. He basically lived to serve, and when he was denied this, it was something he just absolutely hated. So he began writing The Prince. The Prince is interesting in that the purpose of it wasn't to become this well-known piece of political philosophy that it became, but really it was a plea to get his job back. It was more or less a job application. He had dedicated this to Lorenzo he had dedicated this to one of the Medici family, Lorenzo de Medici. Can't hardly say that. Anyway, Lorenzo de Medici, I believe. Like a tongue twister. Anyhow, he writes The Prince in 1513, dedicates it to Lorenzo de Medici, and I'm not real sure how it was received. I hear different opinions on it. Some say the Medici family did not like it. But anyhow, between 1513 and his death in 1527, he writes plays and poems for which he's actually very well known. He wasn't famous during his life for The Prince. The Prince was not published until after his death, actually, in 1532. My belief is that he never meant for it to be published, and that he actually benefited a bit from the invention of the printing press. He was in the right place at the right time, perhaps. Regardless, the book went on to become very well known. It's said that Napoleon read it, and I'm sure many other leaders and tyrants and business executives and who knows who all else has read this book. It's a very controversial book because of the nature of the way it takes a very realistic approach to state building. It says that basically do whatever it takes, as long as it's good, as long as the outcome's good, whatever it takes to stay in power, it's fine. Whether or not he ever regained office is a subject of well, I'm not sure. My research, some of the research suggests that he did, some of the research said he never did, so I'm really not sure about that. I think I read somewhere that he may have ran for his office in the second chancery again, losing, but others said that never happened, so I'm really not real clear on that. As I said, he did write other works, most notably The Art of War and the Discourses on Livy. The Art of War was, as you might guess, a military tactics book. The Discourses on Livy were like history books about Rome. He was quite the historian. He wrote history books about his city of Florence. He wrote quite a bit of history on Rome, something he was very fascinated in. In fact, the Prince contains quite a bit of historical references to Rome and the Roman Empire. Of course, as I said before, he wrote many plays and poems for which he was actually quite well known and famous during his lifetime. Towards the end of his life, he said he, tried to travel and stay well connected with people that were in politics. He never gave up on politics. It was always something he loved. He was never quite celebrated during his life as the way he is today. It's unknown whether or not he probably had no idea how famous he was going to become. He ended up dying at the young age of 58. Today, the Prince is almost required reading for like business leaders, CEOs, things like that. Something famous in pop culture was a rapper by the name of Tupac Shakur. Apparently read The Prince and named an album after Machiavelli, although he spelled it wrong. So that's basically it. Niccolo Machiavelli, author of The Prince. Thank you.